and welcome at Localization World San Jose. I am here with Paul Danter, the CEO of RWS Moravia, and we're going to talk about the future of the industry. So Paul, tell me, what do you think an LSP would look like in 5 years' time? What's your crystal ball predictions?
Well, that's a really great question. I think that an LSP in 5 years is probably not going to be that different in some structure than it is today. And what I mean by that is, what is the core of what an LSP does as a business? And that's really about supply chain. I mean, if you really break it down to its fundamental components, it's about finding people who are really good at something, language related in our instance, and then how do you match those resources with any body of work that you're trying to complete at any given time. And I think in the future, some of the types of work that those resources will do will change. And the way that we adapt to be able to manage those people and match them with the work that they do is really going to be core to what we provide our clients. But really speaking, that essence of what a LSP might look like in 5 years will probably be quite the same. It'll be, how do you manage that supply chain? How do you optimize the efficiency of that supply chain? How do you use technology in a good way to be able to get the most out of the people that are doing the work? And so in essence, I think it's going to change, but the structure of it will be very, very similar to what we see today.
You and I, we've been talking about the transformations happening at our customers.
Sure.
And I'd be interested to hear from you, what are you seeing are these biggest transformations that you're seeing with your customer base?
I think the biggest transformation with our customers is really on their end of how they provide us the content that we need to work on in the most efficient way possible. So I think it was always an afterthought in the past, and so there was a lot of packaging and transmission of content that sometimes was manual, sometimes really just bolted on to their processes and so on. And now what they're really thinking about is we have a role to play in this as well, and so how do we facilitate that? How do we provide not just content but context and metadata around those things that really gives us the best result at the end of it? So there's more of a focus today on that than ever before, and there's also a focus on how do I as somebody responsible for localization within my company measure how successful I am at doing these things. So how do you find the metrics that help you really show a difference and show the ways that you're providing that content is actually having an impact and resulting in an achievable or measurable goal for your business.
Would you share with us maybe some examples where you've seen this, how you can actually measure the impact of a content and what difference that makes in the customer's business?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we've been doing some really interesting things that are a little bit on the edge of what we are doing, more newer projects. So there was a customer we work with where we were actually providing a service to go look at the images that are associated with content and whether or not they would have a cultural problem in any given locale. And it was really interesting because marketing teams were providing all this information and providing us the content that they were going to use, and just the nuances of things that could be potentially offensive or whatever were really easy to be able to kind of collate and understand what the impact could have been on those campaigns should they have been launched. And then the work that we were able to advise them on of how to perhaps make them more appropriate was really interesting as well. It's a very kind of manual example, but it's a good example of how does it really impact what we're trying to do as a business from our client side, and then how can you help us achieve that?
Shifting gears a little bit about culture, people,
yeah.
Right? We've talked about customers, so you're the Chief Culture Officer at Moravia, and I think your company has a very unique culture. Yep. Tell us a little bit about that, and how do you maintain this as the company grows?
Well, culture is everything in our business. We're a people-powered business, and people are our best resource and our best asset, and they are what allow us to do what we need to do as a company. And so we've always had a bit of a unique culture. Moravia started in Brno in the Czech Republic, and that culture kind of started at the moment that business was founded, and really elements of that still are within in the business, and we're trying to do what we can to just groom that, if you like, to make the most of it and to just make people understand and feel part of that culture so from the first day that they start working with us. So we spend a lot of time and effort on various different programs and activities that will get employees engaged with the business, and not just the work they do, but how they can contribute towards other elements of that as well, whether it's focusing on things like the environment and how our employees are engaged in something we call the green agenda, and how they can make suggestions about the things that we do that could have an impact on that, all the way through to how we support our colleagues through things like LGBTQ and what we can do to make an inclusive workplace for those individuals. And we really care about those things, and I spend a lot of my time thinking about how can we actually be better at that? How can we also take advice from people on the ground within our offices so that we can adapt the culture and adapt some of the programs that we're engaged in to be culturally relevant, whether that's in China or Japan or whether it's in Argentina or the US.
Thank you so much, Paul, for taking the time to come over and share your wisdom and best practices with all the audience here at LocWorld, and see you very soon. Thank you.